Stand by SOT1.
Standing.
10 seconds. Ready, rollin'. Ready, SOT1.
Ready.
In 4, 3, 2, 1. Roll in.
From legendary Uncle Studios in beautiful Southern California, welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters, the central location for you employees, you employers, and of course, we haven't forgotten about you damn independent contractors. And now, here's this week's edition of Work Comp Matters.
June 24th, 12:03. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters. My name is Steve Appell. I'm joined by the madman across the water, Mr. John Scalia, and my chief of staff, the doctor, but he's not a medical doctor, Dr. Mike Zyma. Work Comp Matters is brought to you by the workcompcentral.com. If you want the number one location for workers' compensation in both California and around the United States, check out the workcompcentral.com. They've got a free 7-day offer. And if you want to pick up their services, I have them. You should too. It's only $1 a day. Work Comp Matters is also brought to you by A1 Law, number one computer management system. 818-357-4120 for your no strings attached money back guarantee. Also $1 a day. A1 Law. Good afternoon, everybody. It's been a busy morning for myself and my staff. We've got lots of news. I want to go to Mike in a little bit regarding the earthquakes that we were feeling. But the first news story of the day, apparently New Jersey and New York just came out this morning or last night. It's been so busy, I don't know. And apparently the governors have decided in New Jersey and New York that anybody entering their states from outside the states is required to quarantine for at least 14 days before going out. And I find this fascinating, okay? We spoke on the show earlier in the week, last week, about Hawaii, which has had this mandatory 14-day quarantine, which I don't begrudge them. In fact, I agree with it. If you do not live in Hawaii, if you're coming into Hawaii for the first time in the last 100 days, you have to go to your apartment, you have to go to your hotel, you have to go wherever and quarantine for 14 days. And I get that. But for the governors of New York and New Jersey now to say, if you don't live in New York or New Jersey, you come into our state, you got to quarantine. What the hell is going on? Okay. I'm thinking that any state where someone from New Jersey or New York comes into a different state, they should have to quarantine for friggin' 14 days. I mean, New York and New Jersey are basically the outliers of the coronavirus hospitalizations, deaths, those diagnosed. They have triple, if not quadruple, the amount of COVID-19 cases in the state, and yet they're saying if anybody comes into their state, they want to quarantine. I say exactly the opposite. What the heck is going on? Mike, I didn't have time. John, I didn't have time to give you this story. I just got it in the morning, but that to me sounds totally backwards. What do you guys think?
Well, it sounds to me like New York and New Jersey are responding to the surges in cases coming from those locations. For the most part, as I understand it, New York has turned the corner, and they're trying to keep it that way. This is not surprising to me at all.
John?
Well, I think it's illegal. And interestingly enough, New Jersey and New York are neighbors. I wonder if the quarantine applies from somebody who lives in New Jersey and works in New York. But basically, the courts have said that the states cannot impose limitations on the U.S. citizens' right to travel from one state to another. And those cases have generally involved two areas of law. They've involved involved voting rights, and they've involved welfare rights.
Yeah, but John, they're not restricting their right to travel to New York and New Jersey. They just say, once you get here, you quarantine for 14 days.
I would call that a restriction.
All right. Very good. Okay. I want to get to the earthquakes now, because that is really the head story. And Mike, I'm sorry I didn't give you more notice on it, but Mike and I, of course, work in the same office. And I was at my desk, and all of a sudden I felt a little roly-poly. And I said, "Hey, Mike, is that an earthquake?" And Mike goes, "Yeah, I think I felt something." And within like 60 seconds, he goes, yep, there was something going on. So Mike, take a minute or two, and let's talk about the earthquakes that happened this morning.
Okay, I've been following it with the USGS, the U.S. Geologic Survey. Around 10:30, I felt what to me was a brief bit of dizziness, and I dismissed it. And then about 10 seconds later,
that's because you get a brief period of dizziness multiple times during your day, right?
Some days are better than others,
Yeah, but then, those are the days when you actually get medical treatment. But I interrupted you. Please continue.
So then Steve goes, "Hey, was that an earthquake?" And I go, "Well, let me check." And there was a 5.8 to 6-pointer in Lone Pine, and there were just all kinds of aftershocks, and some really strong ones too. And a lot of the aftershocks were located north of Lone Pine. We have some friends that live in Reno, and we've been trying to get in touch with them to see what they felt, if anything. On the map of the USGS, of course, it goes all the way down to southern Mexico. So you recall that about, 2 days ago, there was a 7.8er in southern Mexico. I don't know whether they're related. The Lone Pine event is not on the San Andreas. I don't know what fault it is on, but the aftershocks coming fast and furious. But the first one was the only one I felt.
All right. Well, I thank you very much for that. Gavin Newsom, the Gav, stood in the state's Emergency Operations Center on March 19th and announced an executive order that would change the course of California history, requiring residents to remain in their homes as the coronavirus spread around the world. California became the first state to tell all residents to stay at home amid the pandemic. Newsom's decision sparked some controversy and a few lawsuits, but has been credited with slowing the spread of the coronavirus and allowing California to avoid larger death tolls seen in states with early outbreaks, such as New York and friggin' New Jersey. Now 3 months later, the governor is in the middle of a test that could prove even more challenging than closing California, and that is reopening it. The Gav has his press conference now daily, I think Monday through Friday, and we are clearly seeing a spike in California as far as diagnosis and hospitalizations. I don't know if we're seeing a spike in deaths, but it wouldn't surprise me. And the Gav today wanted to specifically remind people that we are not out of the woods yet. And in fact, if you invite family over to your home, make sure you continue to wash your hands and practice your social distancing. And John, I wanted to ask you, because I think you're the only one of your family members that lives in Germany. Have you been with any family in person?
No, but I've been with friends.
And I presume you practice your appropriate social distancing when you see friends?
Actually, I've just seen 2 or 3 friends, and no, I haven't practiced social distancing. In fact, we've exchanged greetings the European way.
And what is the European way to exchange greetings? A kiss on each cheek?
Yes. and a hug.
You reckless bastard, you.
What can I tell you?
I'll tell you, I had a friend of mine from high school. I'll say his name, Mark Epstein. Hey, Mark, love you. Known him for like over 45 years. He has comorbidities, no question about it. And he has seen very few people in person except where he goes to work and seriously practices the social distancing. And I said, look, Mark, you want to come over? You want both of us to wear masks? I'm happy to do that. I just want to see you. However, let me give you a suggestion. Knock at the door. I'll open the door, walk straight outside. Let's go ahead and sit outside at least 6 feet away. This is about a week and a half ago. And if you feel comfortable, don't have to wear your mask. And I won't do it either. He came over, got him some ice water. We sat in the backyard at a table 6 feet away without masks. And we spent about 3 hours together. And I was smoking cigarettes and he was smoking his cigar, as he always does. And we had a great time. And we believe that we appropriately practiced our social distancing.
I have a question for John, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, in pre-production, John, I believe you mentioned that the European Union was talking about banning Americans from going to Europe. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Can you fill us in a little more?
Well,
I mean, is there any more news on this?
No, it's just the news items here say that it's under serious consideration based on the outbreak in America and the fact that it's obviously you don't have it under control. We're opening up Europe. So various countries in Europe are opening up in what we call the Schengen area, where we have, visa-free, passport-free travel in the European Union. It's all opening up again. And so, everybody's being allowed in. And believe it or not, China would probably be allowed in, even though America is not. So it's just a list of which countries have it under control. And that's, and it's based, and in all honesty, I got to admit, I mean, I'm sure, Trump doesn't have a lot of friends in Europe, so that probably doesn't help. But it is based on.
Does Trump have a lot of friends anywhere, John?
Well, yeah. Well, we'll get to that. I have a segment I'd like to do on that, but actually, he's got very, very few friends in Europe. Most Europeans think he's, off the reservation. So that adds to it. I mean, I think in the past, it might not have even been a consideration, but now it's just a consideration based on straight numbers. So yeah, Americans.
John,
yeah.
Are there any other countries that may possibly be banned from European travel? Do you know?
Oh, I'm sure Brazil has got to be will be on the list, and all the countries where it's out of control, Latin American countries. Russia may be on the list. Actually, I'm not sure, but China is going to be good, but it's all tentative. I mean, the meeting on which they decide is coming up in a few days, so we'll know for sure.
All right,
so we'll know before the weekend, right? Sorry, we should know before the weekend, John. Okay.
Either right before or just after.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for that. And John has a segment on Trump. If he would have said that a couple of months ago, well, what else is new? But John's been talking about the LAPD lately. So it is surprising. My name is Steve Appell. You're dialed into Work Comp Matters. We are brought to you by the workcompcentral.com. If you want the #1 location for workers' compensation in both California and around the United States, check out the workcompcentral.com. They've got a free 7-day offer. And if you want to pick up their services, I have them. You should too. It's only $1 a day. Work Comp Matters is also brought to you by A1 Law, #1 computer management system, 818-357-4120 for your no strings attached, money back guaranteed, $1 a day. A1 Law. We've got some more news coming up. Today is Earthquake Day, but now we're going to go to the madman across the water, 35-year retired California workers' compensation attorney John Scalia with his take on President Donald Trump.
Actually, it's more of a take on the Republican Party. The Southern Center on Law and Poverty classifies organizations as racist, hate-mongering organizations. And it's a wonder to me why they don't put the Republican Party on the list. And let me explain to you that the Republican Party certainly deserves to be on the list of organizations which foster hate. Donald Trump has appointed 53 appeals court judges. His most recent one was a guy named Wilson. I forget his first name. And let me read to you about Wilson. First of all, of Trump's 53 appeals court judges, none are black. None. 11 are female, 7 are Asian Pacific American, 1 is Latino, 36 are white men. Boy, that really reflects America. No, but it really reflects the Republican Party. Wilson, the last guy, is the perfect embodiment of a Trump appeals court judge. He's a 49-year-old white man who has described the Affordable Care Act as illegitimate, said he supports the complete and immediate reversal of Roe v. Wade, and called same-sex marriage a pander to liberal interest groups in an attempt to cast Republicans as intolerant, uncaring, and even bigoted. You think? So my point is, he's absolutely right. You don't have to cast Republicans as intolerant, uncaring, and bigoted. They cast themselves that way. They're racist, they're homophobic, they're misogynistic, all the qualities which get you appointed to the appeals court by Donald Trump. And unfortunately, that's a lifetime appointment. So as I say, it's a wonder to me how the Republican Party doesn't qualify as a hate group. The answer, I think, is obvious. The answer is people are afraid to say that about America. Just like when Trudeau was asked about something about Trump, he just had 30 seconds of silence. Because America is so powerful and so rich, people are afraid to antagonize it. But, if there's justice in the world, the Republican Party certainly qualifies. That's the view from this side of the pond.
Oh, I am just left speechless. What can I tell you? John is always, I don't always agree with you, and certainly in this case, I don't appreciate the contributions to the show. Employees at multiple UPS hubs in the Bay Area have tested positive for COVID-19. Sources tell the Bay Area News Group, and union leadership is blasting the company for a lack of safety protocols for its workers. Workers at the shipping center in San Ramon were informed Wednesday that a colleague had tested positive, but were given no other information, like whom the employee had been in contact with or which department he worked, i.e. contact tracing, which we've discussed many times before on the show. UPS also declined to confirm the case with this news organization, but sources said the employee was a driver in training. Mike, what's the next news story?
The mayor of Nevada City, which is in California, in a controversial social media post, suggested that the GAV's recent order for all Californians to wear masks when in public was not legitimate. Mayor Renette Senum wrote Saturday morning that Newsom's orders could not be enforced by law and that no action can legally be taken against offenders.
Well, I don't know whether or not the mask order is enforceable, but I know never in our history have healthy people been quarantined before. Now, if you will recall, and I've said this many times, Donald Trump came out with the national health emergency on March 13. And it was 48 hours later that the GAV declared a stay-at-home order. You will notice the GAV did not issue an executive quarantine order. He issued an executive order for stay at home. And maybe, I don't know, got to speak to Javier Becerra about that, the California Attorney General. But never before have healthy Americans been quarantined. So in my opinion, I think that the whole stay at home order is not legal. because never before in the United States history has any state quarantined healthy people. And now all the states are doing it. John Scalia, you are a scholar of constitutional law, United States history. Has there ever been a quarantine in the history of the United States for people that are healthy?
I don't know for sure, but I kind of doubt it. But on the other hand, the only thing you can really compare this to is the flu pandemic of 1918. And I'm not sure that they had the capacity to tell people to stay at home back then. I'm not sure it would have worked. So I think when you've got a compelling state interest in a very unique situation, it calls for a unique remedy.
I know that the most recent similar was the smallpox outbreak, in the 1960s. But healthy people were not quarantined. I know in the 1918 pandemic that the only people that were, so to speak, quarantined were some army bases, some military bases that had a collection of hundreds, if not thousands of people. And they were going like out on liberty, and they were all living together. And you might want to look that up, the 1918 pandemic, where military people in the United States, where they were grouped together in thousands, they were required to stay on the base where they lived and not go out. But that's the closest thing that I have found. Mike, anything to add on that regard?
No, except I'm just sick of the whole thing. I'm sure everybody is. That's not news.
Well, okay. Updated regarding money in California. California counties must comply with state and federal COVID-19 rules if they want part of up to $1 billion in funding through the state budget, according to details of a budget deal expected to win approval in the legislature. And that is the GAV, of course, who has a proposed budget. And this will probably pass. The agreement the GAV and legislative leaders reached Sunday night would allocate $750 million to counties for social safety net programs. That amount could be increased to $1 billion if the federal government sends California additional aid money that it had requested, according to bill language posted Monday morning. Mike?
California is unlikely to recover its pre-coronavirus prosperity over the next 3 years, economists say, even as the state slowly rebuilds from a catastrophic economic lockdown. The Golden State's gradual recovery will probably mirror the nation's trajectory, according to a new UCLA forecast. Quote, the public health crisis of the pandemic morphed into a depression-like crisis in the U.S. economy, end quote, per David Schulman, a senior economist at UCLA Anderson Forecast. And guys, remember I said yesterday or the day before, I can't remember, we had occasion over the weekend to go to shopping malls in the Antelope Valley and in Santa Clarita, and they were busting with people. You could hardly even get a parking spot, especially in Santa Clarita. It was just remarkable. So talking about pent-up demand.
California yesterday saw some of its highest numbers of new coronavirus cases, surpassing 6,000 new cases in a 24-hour reporting period for the second day straight as the state barreled forward with reopening plans. Dramatic surges in new cases were seen in various parks of the state. Santa Clara County yesterday recorded its highest daily total in new coronavirus cases in more than 2 months, with 121 cases, a worrisome spike, health officials said. we're coming down to the end of another edition of Work Comp Matters. John, any burning desires or last minute thoughts?
Yeah, I've been online, and apparently during the 1918 pandemic, there were orders to shut down public gatherings, including the schools. I don't know if there were any stay-at-home orders, and they were apparently pretty serious about enforcing the mask thing. It says in 1918, a San Francisco health officer shot 3 people when one refused to wear a mandatory face mask.
Whoa. Whoa.
So apparently, even though I don't know if there was an exact stay-at-home order, but basically the precautions that they're taking now were also taken in 1918.
Well, that is good information to know. Mike, any burning desires, last minute thoughts?
Nope. Thank you.
All right. Very good. Well, I appreciate all of you contributing and listening to another edition of Work Comp Matters. For the madman across the water, Mr. John Scalia, for my chief of staff, the Dr. Mike Zyma, for Scott Walton of legendary Uncle Studio, and all the good people back at WorkCompCentral that continue to support and approve of what I believe is a very valuable project. My name is Steve Appell. We'll see you again tomorrow at noon for another edition of Work Comp Matters.